so much of my conditioning was based on, and as most of us are, it was based on the belief that I would be worthy when. So when I had the house, when I had 6 figures, when I had 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever the number was, that's when I would feel good enough about myself. And what I've realized now, and what I've learned now, and what I've had to unlearn, is that there is no relationship between your worth and your output. If you can learn to work from your worth versus trying to achieve your worth, is the greatest lesson that I have learned on this journey.
Welcome to the Prosperity Playground, the podcast where business meets energetics, strategy meets soul, and prosperity becomes inevitable. I'm your host, Anna Lozano, mom, founder, investor, mentor, and energetics in business expert. This is your weekly activation to rewire how you think and feel about wealth, success, and personal power, because it's not about working harder, it's about regulating deeper, aligning stronger, and receiving wider. You don't hustle for your future, you calibrate to your higher self. Join me weekly for high-level conversations with the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and thought leaders. True prosperity isn't just about money. It's about alignment, freedom, expansion, and embodying your worth. Welcome to the playground. Let's build your most prosperous life. Welcome back to the Prosperity Playground podcast. Today, I'm joined by my dear friend, Sandra Chuma. And if you're a successful entrepreneur and feel like you've been hitting an invisible ceiling, this one is meant for you. Sandra Chuma grew up in Zimbabwe without running water and built an 8-figure business from scratch. From the outside, it looked like everything she'd worked for. From the inside, she burnt out twice trying to hold it all together. What she found on the other side of that wasn't about a strategy. It was a different question entirely. Not how do I scale without burning out, but why does hitting every goal still feel like it's not enough? The answer wasn't in her business model. It was in the belief running underneath it all, that her worth had to be earned through what she produced. She created Worthy to work at that layer, not the strategy layer, which her clients have already mastered, but the identity layer that determines whether success feels like freedom or just an expensive form of proving. Sandra built this framework because she needed it herself and now works with the founders and executives who are ready to understand what's actually creating their ceiling and to build the kind of self-leadership that doesn't require constant sacrifice to sustain it all. Her methodology combines neuroscience, psychology, and the lived experience of someone who has walked this path and can show you exactly where the equation breaks down. This episode, we dive into the illusion that hitting milestones will finally make you feel worthy. We talk about the real work being in the nervous system and in the subconscious, and healing the invisible patterns holding you back, and how to actually achieve this for true foundational, joyful success. All right, loves, enjoy the show, and please let us know what resonates. DM Sandra Chuma on Instagram, DM me at _Anna Lozano. We'd love to hear from you. We show up each and every single week to support your expansion, your transformation. So definitely let us in. All right, let's go. All right, Sandra Chuma, welcome to the Prosperity Playground podcast. I am so delighted you're here, my dear friend.
I am so delighted to be here, and I was waiting anxiously for my invite to be a guest, so here we are.
Yay! Oh my gosh, it's crazy preparing for an interview with your friend, because I'm like, we can go in so many directions. And so I had to look through like previous guests, and I'm like, okay, where are we going to fill in the gaps with this juicy conversation? So I want to start off by sharing, because I would say like 95% of my guests I do have a relationship with. And so you and I, we met when we were scaling Love Powered Co. And I believe it was through a DM we connected, and we received an invite to this incredible event, which I shared with you. I was like, this was going to be a life-changing event for us. So let me just share it. So Sandra was putting on an event.
You said that the operative word. It was going to be.
It was going to be. And I still hold that faith that that you sent an invitation for a huge event you were putting on in Toronto where Love Powered co-founders, which is us, we're going to be sharing the stage with Gabby Bernstein, Lisa Nichols. We're going to do a huge affirmation activation. And then the pandemic happened and the event had to be canceled. So this is like on the to-do list, my friend. I am holding you in the highest light to put on this epic event. What do you think?
I reserve the right to remain silent.
Okay, well, it's still on my dream board. Okay, we're gonna keep it.
One day we will make it happen.
I love that. Okay, so I'd love to kick off with a little bit of your story because you were raised in a mud hut in Zimbabwe, and you went on to create 8-figure businesses. And so I'd love for you to share the moments that are most relevant to us and really zoning in on certain belief systems that you yourself had to really work on in order to go through this journey to create this success when we look at success and how we describe it today, because it took a lot of reprogramming, undoing, healing, and a lot of work for you to get to where you were.
The journey there, as you said, I was born, really raised with nothing. Didn't realize it at the time because when everybody around you looks the same, I didn't realize we were poor. And was only really my parents had aspirations for me to have a different life. But I actually want to kind of flip it and start, instead of kind of walking through the journey of how did I get there? Because it's always easy in hindsight to say, oh, this is what I did, or this is the beliefs that I held. It's actually, as you said, what I've had to unlearn, because so much of my conditioning was based on, and as most of us are, it was based on the belief that I would be worthy when. So when I had the house, when I had 6 figures, when I had 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever the number was, that's when I would feel good enough about myself. And what I've realized now, and what I've learned now, and what I've had to unlearn is that there is no relationship between your worth and your output. There is no relationship between how you feel and your ability to love yourself and the things, the material things that we achieve. But so much of society is, and I see it right now with so much of social media being focused on, build a 7-figure business, be a 7-figure entrepreneur. And I feel like I wish more people knew that getting there is great. Listen, I love nice shoes. I like driving a nice car, but that's not what's going to fulfill you. And so if you can learn to work from your worth versus trying to achieve your worth is the greatest lesson that I have learned on this journey.
So much so that you created a brand called Worthy, which, when it comes through source, when a vision comes through you for a higher purpose, like remember us talking about like, holy fuck, the website was available. Like your brand website being called Worthy was actually available on GoDaddy. Like, okay, this is meant to be. And, you created this platform for us to really dive inward first. And this is really what the journey, like when you quote unquote arrive, and I feel like so many of us are now seasoned founders, we arrived to the first destination. For me, that arrival looked like looking backwards and being like, what the fuck was this all for? There was so much sacrifice. There's so much hustle. There was so much competition. Yeah. There was so much energy, and I just had this conversation with my husband and he's like, yes, but we were on top of the world. And I'm like, I know, my love, but you don't know how I felt inside on that journey. You only saw and lived the experience that we got to live. But I now declare so firmly, going on to like my 3rd journey, that I will never do it from that feeling ever again, because it's not worth it. The sacrifices aren't worth it. So when did that really click for you? Like you got there and then it was same question, right? What is this all for? How did you start to build differently from that stage?
I burnt out.
Yeah.
Like it was literally God, universe was like, all right, I've been trying to tell you, and now I'm just going to burn everything down and burn you out in the process. And that's how you're going to learn the lesson. And I don't think for me, I could have learned it any other way. And it really, for me, what I believe now, and I agree with you 100%, Anna, is that if it doesn't feel good getting there, it's not going to feel good being there. And I think somehow we think, oh, if I could just sacrifice enough and get there, then I'll feel good. It isn't going to feel good. And it's not success if it requires you to sacrifice yourself, if it requires you literally to set yourself on fire to get to whatever that end goal is. And what I have learned along my journey is that what we really need to do is to unforget. Unforgetting is really what's become a core tenet of my brand, in that, going back to what I said about you were born worthy. The minute before you even arrived, you were worthy. And yet somehow we feel like, oh, I will be worthy on the other side of something else. And so it's remembering the truth of who we are, remembering our own power, realizing that none of that sits outside of you. You are whole and complete. And I think one of the disservices that we do in the personal development world is speak to people, and specifically women, as though they are broken and need fixing, as if you're constantly on this journey of personal development and listen, I'm here for personal development, but it's what's the energy underneath it. And so when we can see ourselves as fully whole, fully complete, and wanting to go to experience all that life has to offer, that's a very different energy.
Yeah, this is it. I'd love to bring to the table so that then we can start to really unpack it. You work with 7-figure founders, 8-figure founders, 9-figure founders. What are you seeing still that's coming up and that's showing up? And I'll give you an example. So this past summer, I did a beautiful hypnotherapy session. And what came up for me, which now consciously makes so much sense, but it's this entanglement in proving. And the way that I was proving my worth was through working hard. And, it was just like the last string of this energy that still was showing up. Because again, I've been 17 years in the personal development space. There's been a lot of work, a lot of conscious and subconscious reprogramming and all of it, but there's still things that come up that maybe haven't fully been dealt with. And so that was one of the things coming up for me, is like, I need to still work hard in order to prove at the end of the day, it's worth, right? Even though consciously, I know I am fucking worthy because I am, period. Consciously, I know. But subconsciously, there were still threads. So what are you seeing? So we can create this resonance for the women listening. Like, what are other things that come up for high-powered, successful women that maybe just the last thread in this work? And then the second part of this is like, I know the entanglement of like, I need more healing. I need more personal development. I need more mindset. I need more therapy. I need more, where I came to a point where I said, enough. Like, I am whole, perfect enough, and I have enough skills, enough healing, enough growth that I get to create the best, biggest, highest version of the next iteration with what I am and who I am right now.
I think that we think that when we get to a certain stage, then all of this goes away. But you're so right, Anna, in that it all shows up. And like you said, I coach women who are doing 7 figures, 8 figures in their businesses. And these exact same patterns, like you said, continue to show up. They just look different. But all of the insecurities, all of the, am I good enough? Am I worthy? The hustle, the feeling that like my worth is tied to my output. And the biggest one that I see is this resistance, or this not being able to rest. Not being able to rest and take rest without feeling guilty, without feeling like I'm always behind. I've always got to catch up. That's a huge one that I see with the women that I work with. And for so many, and this is the unfortunate part, for so many of us, since we were little girls, we were rewarded for our output. So when you're a little girl, you're told, oh, good girl, you got good grades. And so what does that create in us? That correlation, like, oh, when I get good grades, then I'm loved. And so that creates in us this need to continually prove ourselves through our output. We were told that you must be a good girl. You mustn't be angry. You mustn't, control your emotions. So we learn to suppress our emotions. We learn to keep ourselves small. And I think one of the other difficult things that we have as women is we're so afraid to own our success, because many of us were taught that don't brag, don't tell other people, like you've got to be humble. And so we keep ourselves small because I don't want anyone to know. And so we're in this weird dynamic where we want to be successful, but when we are successful, we're afraid to say it because other people might hate on us. But all of these are patterns that show themselves differently, and they all live. This is the really interesting thing, is like you said, Anna, all of the women that I work with have done the mindset and the therapy and the breath work and the all of these things. And so why do these patterns still keep coming up? It's because we haven't addressed where they actually live, which is in our subconscious mind and in our nervous system. And that's one of the biggest ways that if you're feeling stuck, if you feel like there's an invisible ceiling, you're doing all of the things, you've got the strategy, it's because there's a belief in your subconscious mind, in your nervous system that says, it's not safe for me to be successful. It's not safe for me to rest. It's not safe for me to show up fully as myself.
Okay. So how about I step into the hot seat? You're my coach, because I'd love to unpack this. Full transparency and vulnerability. One of the things that I've also witnessed in our 17-year career of being entrepreneurs is really this up and down cycle, this cycle of having really successful years and impact and visibility, and then a dip. And then another cycle. Like we've probably gone through at least 4 of these cycles. When I say we, is my husband and I, and we've been together since we both became entrepreneurs together in 2010. And so I'd love to, you're my coach. How do we, and I've done the work, and yet I'm here saying that I know there's still a thread. I know there's something that I may not be aware of. And when we talk about subconscious programming, so I do want to layer in a couple things that I've focused on over the last 3 years. One is the not doing. My nervous system did not know how to relax in the not doing. This created anxiety. This created frustration. This created anger. This created physical outbreaks on my skin. I would have these allergic reactions that were so fucking itchy, Sandra, every few weeks. And that was the nervous system. That was this lack of safety in the not doing, which, when you step outside your body, you're like, this is fucking wild. Like it's literally wild that I am wired to do and do not know how to receive. The other piece of this that, and it's coming up for a reason, is I just did this keynote in Ontario, and one of the attendees, we met for lunch, and I asked her, what did you think of my keynote? And she said, it gave me anxiety. I had to leave the room. When I left the room, I took out my computer and I started working. What were we doing during my keynote? We were breathing. We were tuning into our higher self, touching our body, swaying our body, moving, being fully present. And I get it. I was her in my 30s, but then my body started really screaming at me in my early 40s. And this is when I truly dove into this work. And yet there's still patterns, or maybe it's just my reality has not caught up yet. But I'd love to unpack this live.
If you think about it for a moment right there, Anna, so you've done the work recently on your subconscious mind, but think about how long you've held that belief. For many of us,
4 years.
Grew up seeing for our mothers who never stopped, who worked from the moment they rose to the moment they went to bed. And so we learned that that's what was normal. Because what actually happens with our nervous systems is, if you think about how a child learns to regulate themselves, they learn through co-regulation. They learn through seeing their primary caregivers and how did they react and what are the things that they do. You know this, Anna, with your kids. It's not what you tell them to do. It's what they see you do that they will always copy. And so for most of us as women, there's this beautiful poem by, I'm blanking on her name, but it's her brand is all about the relaxed woman. And she has this beautiful poem that she wrote where she said, I've never known a relaxed woman. Because most of us have never known that. We've never seen it modeled. We've never seen it modeled for us that you can work and you can rest and that you can be successful and you can also take time for yourself. It's always this tension. And so that got buried inside your nervous system, inside your subconscious mind. So of course, the moment you go to sit down and rest, you'll either feel that anxiety because it's foreign to you. It's not safe. Your body says, no, we've got stuff to do. And your nervous system, literally, its one job is to keep you alive, to keep you safe. And so when you introduce something that doesn't feel safe, I don't know how to rest, that feels like, oh, we better be on alert. Get up. You've got things to do. So that's why rest is so hard for us, especially as women. We've never seen it modeled. And then we don't know how to do it, especially in this connected world where we're constantly on our phones and we're constantly bombarded with things coming in. And so it's about giving yourself grace. And I think the very first step in my coaching, I always say to the people that I coach, the women that I coach, that the first step is awareness. Yeah. So the fact that you're even aware that, oh, I'm uncomfortable, that is the first step. And then the second step for me is really the acceptance of, okay, this is how it's always been. This is why it's been the way that it's always been. And the third step for me is about appreciation. So what is happening there is your nervous system, your subconscious mind is doing its job. It is doing a phenomenal job of, hey, my job is to keep you alive, to keep you safe. So come on, let's get up. We can't sit down. And so it's to give it thanks, to say thank you. So literally, I speak to myself, thank you. When the patterns come up, I literally speak to myself, thank you. I see you. I can see you're trying to protect me, but I'm okay now. And it feels uncomfortable. Like when you sit and you do nothing, it feels uncomfortable. But think about how you learned how to do anything else. When you learned how to ride a bike, you got on, you fell off, you got on, you had the training wheels, and you kept trying until you eventually got it. And that's the same thing that we need to do, is keep trying every time, a little longer, a little more discomfort, and allowing ourselves to be with the discomfort.
So good. So it's time. It takes time and it takes repetition and it takes consistency. I can say that I feel safe and I feel good. And maybe I've swung the pendulum to the other side now. I'm really good at relaxing right now. But let's just say I'm gearing up to build $1 billion brand. So I've been enjoying the gear up. It's been really good, but it took me 3 years. Isn't that wild? And so there's this timing aspect of it as well, where
hang on, Anna. It took you 3 years, but it took you 30 something years of learning. I've got to go all the time.
Yes. This is the part of grace where we have to give ourselves grace. And, you know, time, we judge time. It's like, it took 3 years, right? It took this much time before I was able to relax and before the next vision dropped in. And there is a judgment, but again, it's through awareness to say, okay, let's turn this judgment into gratitude, because like you said, it's 40 years of undoing of a programming that is so deeply engraved in all of us. When you were saying like a relaxed, successful woman, like I had goosebumps all over my body, because I'm like, we're hearing of it now, but there's also a lot of big words being used on Instagram. And so for me, it's tuning into like, who is fully embodied in this? Like who truly lives and breathes what they speak. And I think it's so important today and age to be really discerning of the, the environments that you put yourself on, because everyone can be a phenomenal copywriter through AI. But for me, it's that embodiment piece. That's when I feel the embodiment, that's where I'm investing, to be in the rooms, to come together, to spend time together, to coach together, to listen to the podcast, because it's either an investment of time, money, energy. And so we do need to be a lot more discerning right now. And it really is about the embodiment. So let's talk about what's creating the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So we've touched upon nervous system. Can we look a little bit more deeper into subconscious reprogramming? So I first heard about subconscious reprogramming, I would say in 2010 through the work of Bob Proctor and Dr. Joseph Murphy. Now, it was interesting because I was able to read the information. It was very new information. So it's taking, again, time to do the work that leads to actual transformation. But someone who now has awareness, okay, this is clearly still a belief that's running behind the scenes that I need to bring up to the surface. How do you begin that reprogramming work? So for me, it was the proving to prove success, because at the end of the day, it was connected to worth. I'm only worthy of the success when I'm overworking. And I need to prove this. So when we become aware of these things, how do we actually begin to reprogram the subconscious mind?
That is a fantastic question. And I love the fact that also, you talked about what's online right now and people not necessarily embodying. There's also a lot online right now about, just step into your 7-figure or 8-figure identity.
Right.
And I feel like as coaches, if that's the message that's out there, it really does a disservice because it makes it sound like it's a choice. It's a flip that you switch and there you go. Just step into it. Yeah. And really, when you think about how does your beliefs, how did your beliefs get wired in the first place? So there's several places where our beliefs got wired. So it was, for many of us, most of our beliefs came from when we're young, our primary caregivers. Before we could even choose for ourselves, we saw, whether it was said or whether it was modeled for us, the beliefs. So for people where it was, like we just talked about the moms and seeing our moms work from dusk till late at night, whether it was about money and the fact that, you have to work hard for money, or money isn't for people like us. All of these beliefs got wired in really early, and they're wired in, as you rightly said, by repetition, and then also evidence. Mm-hmm. And so how you start to rewire your beliefs is exactly that: repetition, and also evidence. So this is the process that I walk my clients through in terms of us saying, okay, what's the identity? Who do you want to be? And your identity actually doesn't start with, oh, here's the choice that I want to be a 7-figure or an 8-figure person. It starts with state. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you feel within your body? Do you feel safe? And so it's all good and well to say, I want to be a 7-figure entrepreneur, but it's really asking yourself, do I feel safe to be a 7-figure entrepreneur? And getting curious about, because here's the thing, our beliefs, because people often say, oh, I don't know what my beliefs are, or I have limiting beliefs. I'm going to call BS on that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe there's such a thing as a limiting belief. I believe that there are beliefs, and they're beliefs that serve you. They're beliefs that do not serve you, or they're beliefs that at one point served you. So every belief that you have at some level was created because your subconscious mind and your nervous system accepted it as, oh, this is something that'll help us be safe. And so whether that was to be in community, or whether to be accepted or to be loved. And so you took on these beliefs as this becomes, you don't even know that you're holding the beliefs, but how your beliefs show themselves, they always do. And so the 3 biggest places where you can see what is it that you believe is your body and your health. Like, if you're someone who grew up believing that you're someone who eats healthy, who, takes care of their body, that'll show up. It shows up in your money. And so where you are financially, if you want to know what your beliefs are, go look at your bank account. That'll tell you what your beliefs are about money. And then your relationships. what relationships do you have? How healthy are those relationships? So those are the three main places. And what I say to my clients is, let's get curious. Instead of being in judgment, let's get curious. So if we go back to the belief about it's hard for me to rest, get curious about where did that come from. If we go to the belief that your bank account doesn't have money, or it's hard for you to keep money, or money comes in and out and you boom and bust, there's something there that's telling you your nervous system, your subconscious mind doesn't believe that it's safe for you to hold on to money, doesn't believe that it's safe for you to be at a certain weight, because maybe the weight was some sort of a protection. Or if in relationships, doesn't believe that I'm deserving to be in a loving relationship where I'm treated with respect. This is the reason why, and this is research shows this, that women who are in abusive relationships, even if they get out of the abusive relationship, will typically go back into another abusive relationship, because that's what at their nervous system, at their subconscious level, they believe they're worthy of. So it's repetition. But if I had to say, what is the single tool that I have found to be the most effective for subconscious reprogramming? Hypnotherapy. It is why I got certified as a hypnotherapist. And just to give you an example of the power of hypnotherapy. So my mentor, her name is Grace Smith. And I know you know who this is. You know who Joanna Griffith is.
Of course.
Right. She's the founder of Nix. Nix has done over $1 billion in revenue. And as you know, Joanna sold 80% of her company a couple of years ago at a $500 million valuation. And look this up, people who are listening, if you think I'm making this up. Joanna was interviewed recently by, I think it was Fortune magazine, and she was asked about what did she think was the single most powerful tool that she's had as a founder that's helped her build her business. And she said hypnotherapy. And she actually has a lifetime coaching agreement with Grace Smith, who's my mentor, to coach her, because that's how important she recognizes having someone who can work with you on your subconscious beliefs and what your nervous system is holding. And the most effective tool to do that is hypnotherapy.
Wow. Incredible. So I had my first, I would say last year, 2025, I had 2 hypnotherapy experiences. One of them was, don't laugh, was specifically to look at my phobia with snakes, because we spend half our year in Mexico and there's boas around here. And I repeat very confidently out loud that me and snakes are on complete different timelines. And so knock on wood, I have not ran into one, but it's a phobia. Like, it creates physical fear in my body. Right. And so the first one was I hired a hypnotherapist in the area to look at that. And then the second one was the beautiful hypnotherapy session this summer in Kelowna, where it was revealed like this proving energy, which we had discussed through the podcast. So I firmly believe it. And I would love to, if you're okay with this, to kind of look at this boom and bust. So money, everyone can resonate. There's obviously so much programming around money. And interestingly enough, like, money is a form of exchange. Money is a piece of paper. This is how we roll around the world and exchange things. And so we have attached so much and so many stories, myself included, around money, wealth. So I'd love to look at boom and bust, because this is clearly something that has showed up in my life over and over again. So how would you coach me through this? And then what would hypnotherapy look like, which I'm going to hire you for a session around this, because I feel it like I am all, and it's not again about being in this healing loop. It's about looking at where are there still threads that are not serving the next vision, version, or chapter that I am stepping into consciously.
And Anna, you are exactly how so many of the women I work with are, in the sense that they've done the work. Like there's not a single one of them who's ever come to me who's like, I've never done any personal development. I've never done any mindset work. I've never done. And yet, why are these beliefs still there? And it goes back to, first of all, is the fact that they're so deep in our nervous system. They've become, or this is what we've believed based on what was modeled for us. So I would actually start with, for you, getting curious about, what did I see modeled for me growing up by my parents? What's my parents' story about money? What was their relationship with money? Did we have money? Do I associate? And oftentimes, for many of my clients, they associate money with pain. That sometimes the parents may have divorced, and then there was the fight over the stuff, the money, and who's paying the alimony and who's paying the child support and all of this kind of stuff. So for them, they associate, because if you think about a child, they don't have the ability to reason. They hear the parents arguing, and to them, it's like, oh my gosh, like every time the letters come in the mail, mommy and daddy fight. Right. Or every time, there's someone phoning, and then mommy and daddy, or mommy gets sad and she cries. And so that's the association they make with, oh, money equals pain, money equals hard, money equals, and that's what gets, even though cognitively, if I was to talk to any of my clients, these are incredibly smart women. Cognitively, they can explain all the frameworks. They can tell me, oh, this is the reason, blah, blah, blah. But it lives in your nervous system. And unless and until you address it in your nervous system and in your subconscious mind, it will continue to play out. Because remember what I said, the job of your subconscious mind, the job of your nervous system is to keep you safe. And so if you learned money equals danger, money equals pain, even though cognitively you get it, of course it's not, but because that belief, and here's the interesting thing. I actually am doing a certificate program through the Polyvagal Institute, which sounds very fancy, but if for anybody who knows anything about nervous system research, you know that Dr. Porges is the leading researcher on nervous system. He is the creator, researcher who brought about polyvagal theory. And what polyvagal theory says, or what we have something that's called the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve sits here at the base of your spine. And what the vagal nerve does is it transmits information. It's what connects our head with our body. And the vagal nerve is transmitting information. And here's the really interesting thing. The vagal nerve has an 80-20 transfer rate, roughly. I mean, it's not an exact science, but this is what Dr. Porges teaches, is that 80% of the information goes from your body to your head. Only 20% is going from your head to your body. So if you think about that in terms of everyone who's doing the mindset work and the cognitive work and the affirmations, yes, there's some that's getting into, but most of the information that's running our lives is going from our body up to our brain. So your body is saying, your nervous system is saying, I'm not safe. That's not safe for us to have money. That's not safe for us to rest. That's the information that's going up to your brain. And so even though cognitively you might know it, there's so much information going up to your brain. And the same thing, the research about the subconscious mind, your subconscious mind runs 90%. Some even say 95% of your actions. So you think you're consciously making a decision, but your body's already sent the information to your brain that no, not safe. So this is why, even though you might know the information, you might consciously know why you end up taking a different action, why so many of the women I coach are frustrated with themselves, but I know this. So why do I keep doing? I know I should rest. I know I can make money. I know it's safe for me to have money, but they do the opposite because the body, the subconscious mind hasn't got the message yet that we're okay. We're safe to allow money in.
So couple questions here. So 1, hypnotherapy. 2, repetition with the very thing. So if you're not feeling safe in the not doing, in the resting, it's repetition over time to get there. What other tools and practices that we can start? Okay, 2 questions. 1, is it important to know what that thing is that is blocking us? Or can we just start to tune into the physical?
Tune into the physical, because it's so easy for us to go on this hunt for, let me, before I change my life, go and find every single belief that was ever programmed to me. Like I said, they will show themselves. You don't need to go hunting for them. They will show themselves in your bank account, in your love life, they will show themselves. But here's where I would love to help people is, so yes, hypnotherapy, getting into your body, really getting in touch with your emotions, I think is a huge part. But a huge step is starting with your state. How do I feel? So let me give you an example. If you wake up on those days when you wake up, we've all had those days where we wake up and you're just in a bad mood. You're just crotchety. You just didn't sleep well. You just don't feel good. What happens is that state, and I know we've had this experience, that state impacts your whole day. Yeah. So you get out of bed and you stub your toe, and then you spill your coffee, and then that state is literally creating your day. And what happens is, from that state, we tell ourselves a story. So in the sense that that becomes the filter of your day or how you're going through life. And so that story is what then becomes your reality. So you've heard of the reticular activating system. What you see, you will continue to see. You will see more of that. And so what I want to share with your listeners is, when you're wanting for you to create a change, it really starts with you checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? What am I feeling? And not judging yourself. That's the most important thing, because I think we hold so much judgment against ourselves. I shouldn't be feeling this, or I should know better. And so from a state of, I am good, I am complete, or I am a resilient person, I can figure this out, that then becomes the state from which you can tell a different story. And so, for example, you said about boom and bust. So the story someone might say is, I'm so bad with money. What is wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? And then that's going to have you feel depressed. But what if, from a place of curiosity, you're like, that's so interesting that I keep repeating this pattern. I wonder what it is that keeps me in this pattern, or what beliefs I'm holding. It's a very different energy. It's a very different energy, being curious. And so from a place of curiosity, you can now start to tell a different story, because as human beings, we are constantly telling ourselves stories, and our stories become our reality. And so from that place of, that's interesting, I keep recreating this. What's a different story that I could tell? Rather than me saying, I'm so bad with money, you could change the story to, I'm learning to be better with money. I'm learning to manage my money. I learned these beliefs before I could accept them, but now I get to challenge them because I know more. So that story then becomes your self-concept. Instead of you being, I'm a bad person with money, it's like, I'm a person who's learning to manage my money better. I'm a person who's actively looking to be informed about what money is and how I can, and taking action. And that in and of itself then creates the action. Yeah. So now from that place of telling your story, the story of, I'm someone who's learning to be better with money. Now I'm going to go look at a wealth account and put some money in there, an RSP or whatever. And then that becomes your evidence. And evidence is what starts to tell your nervous system, your subconscious mind, it's okay. Look, we put money in our savings account. Look, I'm starting to build up. Oh, we're okay. That's the evidence. So your subconscious mind, your nervous system doesn't change from telling it. It changes from evidence, from you showing it evidence that it's safe.
Oh, so good. So good. I really, really desired this depth from this conversation, because it's literally a process. And I'm kind of like patting myself on the back, Sandra, because as I've been moving through this, I'll share like one of the hardest parts. So when we were building Love Powered Co., my co-founder and I were both really much so in our zone of genius. You know, I was sales and marketing, I was collaborations and partnerships and making new relationships and doing the thing that I do best. I was really in my zone of genius. She was very much so in her zone of genius, in her brilliance. And it was beautiful. And there were other parts of building a product-based business that were neither of our zones of genius. And so before we could outsource those parts, one being financials, you know, and bringing on a fractional CFO, we were responsible for it. And it actually, one, brought quite a lot of stress into our dynamics, because now you have two co-founders who also have very different belief systems around money, wealth, finances, and we've never run a product-based company before. So that was like that first awareness. Eventually we brought on a, fractional CFO, which was phenomenal. Now, fast forward, however many years later we are to today, as I'm going out to build this pickleball brand, which, you know, I hold a massive vision for and massive intention and all of that, the first thing, thank you, my love, for the snaps. The first thing, the very first action that I took after creating the vision, which I say is a partnership with God, what do you think did? I hired a CFO to help me build out the numbers, because I do not desire for that ever to be a stressor in this company because of the vision, because of the downloads, because of the intentionality behind it. I don't want that to be a stressor. So I have worked with a financial professional to build out the numbers before I go for a fundraise. So that, number one, it's absolutely mandatory. But number two is I'm not outsourcing it to her. She is working with me. So I'm part of the process so that I feel safety in these numbers and I feel the confidence in then presenting these numbers to investors. And so it's a completely different action step. And now my relationship with something that I used to say is not my zone of genius, it's not my zone of genius, but there's a beautiful partnership right now. There's a different energy behind it. And I'm loving the numbers. I'm loving seeing the numbers. And of course, I feel like we can reach profitability much faster when the CEO founder understands what is happening with the numbers.
That's such a powerful thing that you've just said right there, Anna, is I think oftentimes we're so focused on the doing that we don't actually take a step back and ask, what am I actually good at? What do I actually want to do in my business? And I think the other thing too is when you're creating whatever the dream is, whatever the vision is starting from the place of who do I need to be?
Yeah.
It's not what do I need to do, but it's who do I need to be? Because here's what I know for sure is most people are asking for the stuff. So I want to have a 7, 8-figure, 9-figure business, and I'm going to the universe. And here's what I believe. I believe the universe is infinite, beyond infinitely abundant. And whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you ask for, you can receive. I also was raised Christian, and the Bible tells you whatsoever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it and it will be yours. So I believe that. Here's where it comes apart and why people then say, oh, I prayed and I didn't get it. We're asking for the thing. So we're asking God, universe, give me 7 figures. That's the wrong prayer that we're asking, that we're praying. What we should be asking is, God, universe, all that is greater than me, allow me to be the person who could hold 7 figures, to be the person who could have in my life the love, the whatever it is that you want. So instead of asking for the thing, ask to be, because I feel like it's almost like if I could demonstrate this, it's like you have a glass and you go to the universe and you say, universe, please fill this. I want 7 figures. And the universe is pouring infinitely. It's pouring. But your glass is you have a 250 milliliter glass and the universe is trying to pour 5 liters into it. it's not going to hold. So that should be what we come to. And even as we're programming, as you're building, as anybody who's listening to this is creating whatever their version of an extraordinary life is, don't pray for the thing because you can get the thing. Pray to be the person who has the capacity to hold the thing. And that's where then the capacity includes the nervous system that actually feels safe to have it, the subconscious beliefs that actually feel that will allow it all in. Because if you aren't the vessel that can hold the blessings, this is when you self-sabotage, when you have the boom and bust, when it's all stressful, when you burn out, because you're not yet the version of you that can hold it.
So good. So if we shift this to an actionable around identity, right? So we're hearing a lot about nervous system, a lot about identity, a lot about a lot of things. If we look at creating that identity and stepping into her, so you've given us the foundations. We need to work with the nervous system to expand our capacity to be able to hold the vision, the version, all of it that we're asking for. Does it start then the same process of awareness? So in order for me to be her, we need to become aware of who she is. But on a deeper level, not just the superficial level, like, trust me again, just like you and I, we like first class, we like 5-star, we like all those things, right? That comes with all of it. But what questions should we be asking ourselves when we are creating that next identity? Pen to paper. What are we asking ourselves? What are we journaling? How are we creating her, but in the proper way versus just the superficial way?
I feel like so first of all, getting clear on what is it that I want? Why do I want it? I think that's always, and not in a judgment. Listen, if you want the Birkin bag, you want the Birkin bag. You don't have to have a justification. But I think the question that most people never stop to ask themselves is, why would I not want this? And I know the people are like, oh, just think positive. Ask yourself, and actually sit with, why would I not want this? Why would I actually be afraid of allowing this into my life? And it might even be simple things, small things like, and this is something that I see with so many of my clients. They're afraid to go to their next level because of what it would mean to their existing relationships, because you would change. And so the people who are your friends now may not be your friends anymore. And that's a scary place to be because we're so wired for community. We're so wired for acceptance, for connection. And so asking yourself those questions and being really true with yourself. What am I afraid of in stepping into this next version of me? Why would I not want it? That can be, if you're honest with yourself, that can be so revealing, because once you know what the fears are, once you know why you wouldn't want it, then now you can actually address it. But versus, let me just focus on, I want to be a 7-figure millionaire, but I haven't actually thought about, well, what will my friends think? What will my parents think? And this is another huge one, which I've come across with so many of my clients recently, is the feeling of being disloyal to your parents. So the fact that your parents had to struggle, to raise you, had to struggle to make money, had to work so hard. And so there's this feeling of, how can it be easy? How can I allow it to, I couldn't possibly, because then it's almost negating all of the hard work, all of the things that they believe. So that can also be like a hidden one where it's like, then I'm leaving behind all the beliefs that I grew up with, because you're giving up something. And here's the other thing too, that I think we don't often think about, Anna, is in you becoming that next version of you, that new identity, something has to die.
Yeah.
There's a version of you that has to die. And we don't often think of it like that, oh, in me becoming that version, this version has to die. And I think that it's so important for us to be aware of, what do I have to give up, or which version of me am I leaving behind? And not from a, let's be mournful and sad and have a funeral, but from a place of gratitude, from expressing gratitude to that version of you that got you here. Say, thank you so much. You got me here. And now we're going to the next level. I'm so grateful for you. It's time you've done your job. I can let you go now.
Oh, Yes, so good. And there's a part of us that, as we're on this evolution journey, may want to judge the other version. But I'm like, I look at my younger self in my 20s. Yes, she was hustling, she was grinding, ambitious, driven, determined, doing all the things. She got us to the next version. And I choose to do it in a different way, but we likely would not be here if that Anna didn't bring us to the now. And so I love when you share that. It's so powerful. And I had something else connecting the dots for us. And it slipped my mind. But where I want to take this to is the conversation of sisterhood. Because when we talk about safety in all areas of our life, you and I have had this conversation behind closed doors, and sisterhood is something that women crave. However, there's sisterhood wounding that many of us bring to the table. And yet there's this power of sisterhood. And it again comes down to nervous system, because when I started to unpack this, I realized that there were events in my teen years that really hurt me when it came to friends and women and not being included, that I actually brought into my void years, those 3 years that I described, whereas in my messy middle, that started to show up, where I felt the pain of not being included. And then I got, then it led me down this rabbit hole of, am I not included because right now I'm in my low? Because when Anna's on her high, Anna's invited everywhere and I'm everywhere. But when I'm low, who is actually showing up for me? And there was a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And I was able to actually tie it back to unprocessed emotion of experiences that I had as a teenager in high school. And I would just stuff those down and move on and find a new group of friends. I was always I was a floater. I always knew a ton of people, but I never had, those that best friend that you have in high school that then is still your best friend in your later years. I never had that, but I realized it was also a protection. It was a protection mechanism for me to protect myself and move on. And that really started to rise to the surface when I was doing this deep inner work after we sold Love Powered. So let's chat about that, because we bring the wounding to the table. But there's two tables. There's the table that's like you on your high rah being invited, but there's the table that is much smaller when you're in your lowest of lows and you see who's actually left around you.
So, oh my goodness. And here's the thing. I actually she won't mind, I won't say her name, but I know she wouldn't mind me sharing this. I was coaching someone recently and we're talking about how, she's a people pleasing is a huge thing for her. And even though she's running this 8-figure business, she just feels like she can't say no. And she does what, and when we unpacked it and I did a hypnotherapy session with her, what came up was when she was in the 6th grade, she'd been a huge fan. The Spice Girls were huge, and she'd been a huge fan of the Spice Girls, and all the girls had Spice Girls stickers. And so at break time, they would all go and swap Spice Girls stickers. And she had overheard some other little girls in her class saying, we don't want to swap with her. We're not going to swap with her. And so what she did was, because she knew she didn't want to go out there and face the humiliation of no one wanting to swap with her, she went and she hid. And that became kind of her thing. She would go and hide. And that's where the people pleasing, and this is like 30 something years later, she had this, it was the Spice Girl stickers. So this is the thing, is so many of us carry that wounding. And I think that, and I'm not sure where we learn it as little girls and why little girls can be so mean to each other. But I feel like so much of it comes from scarcity mindset even now, when you think about it in the workplace, think about it. I was in corporate. You and I were both in corporate for a long time, Anna. And if you think about it in the workplace, how many women are in leadership positions? I was in IT, where it's the bastion of white males, and 90% of leadership positions was men. And even if you look at Fortune 500 companies right now, 10% of Fortune 500 companies have a female. So it's almost like there's only one seat at the table for a woman, and we've all got to fight each other. So it perpetuates this scarcity mindset where it's like, if you have, and I see it in the coaching world where it's like, if I get the client, then you're not going to, and I'm not going to refer my client to you because you might take my client. And so we're very much me, mine. And that's why then we're so vicious to each other. At least I think is one of the reasons why we're so vicious to each other. I also think a huge part of it is the self-love. Because if you loved yourself truly deeply, you wouldn't feel insecure about somebody else's success. You'd celebrate somebody else's success. And that's so interesting for me, Anna, hearing you talk about your woundedness and your sister wounds, because if there's one person that I know will celebrate whatever it is that I do, it's Anna. I'm like, I could like open a can and Anna will be like,
yay, Sandra opened a can.
I'm teasing, but you're such a cheerleader. And so that's so interesting about how you've been able to flip that dynamic. But yes, the sister wounds, it runs so deep for so many of us.
And I think it's important, like you said, step one being aware, like awareness being step one, so that if we can all begin this process of, then together in community, we will be that much more powerful. And so I was able to recognize that wounding of specifically not being invited, like specifically being excluded. And that's the emotion that I sat with. And when I sat with the emotion, I realized it was old emotion. Like we're talking 30-year-old emotion that was there in the nervous system. And so I would start to see more evidence of it because, like you said, the lens that we look through. And yet, since my 20s, since business school, I have been a connector. I have been a networker, and it's not networking, connecting to get. It has always been intentional for me. I have loved connecting women. There's women that are still friends, and I am no longer in that group, but I made that introduction. And this is just part of who I am. And so the beautiful thing about doing the wounding work is that I am still me, and yet I'm that much more powerful than when there was that layer of wounding, because I'm a line 4 in human design. And so that is like, I have innately been that. And when you clear and release the wounding, the things that are, patterns that are still there, we get to be more authentically ourselves, and we get to feel even better being that version of ourselves. And so I think it's really powerful. And so just to tie this up with a knot, when we can feel that true safety in sisterhood, then we release the masks, we release the proving, the people pleasing, and that true connection, that real, raw, authentic connection, and I feel that with you, is so much more powerful than ever being in competition or fighting for that one client, one spot at the table, whatever it is. And so this is an invitation, really, and as we close off this conversation, to look at, is there wounding that you hold? And listen, it's been passed on generationally for all the very reasons, Sandra, you described. Yeah. And so I just know that as we do our work around this, that together we are that much more powerful.
Here's what I would love to add to that, Anna, is so all of these things that we talked about, whether it's the beliefs that no longer serve us or whether it's this wounding that's been passed down generationally, I think that everything has equal parts. It also has a gift. Yeah. And so I think it's really us being intentional about choosing to see what was the gift in this. And I also believe truly that our ancestors, the lines that, connect us, yes, they pass down their wounding. They also pass down their potential, their dreams, their wishes of how things could be different. And I feel like that's the mantle that's been given to us, the responsibility that's been given to us, that they did the best that they knew how. We get to take that on and see, how do we do better? How do we do different? And let that be what we pass on to the next generation. So yes, the wounding came, but also the incredible opportunity, the incredible challenge for us to be better and do better.
So good. So good. And once we see something, we can't unsee it. And so this is your beautiful invitation to look at it. Oh, thank you so much, Sandra. Anything else that you would love to add before we quickly rapid fire?
The one thing that I would love to add is really going back to something, double down on what I said, is that it's not about looking to things outside of ourselves to feel worthy, to feel good about ourselves. It's really looking to feeling worthy. And from that place of feeling worthy, of loving ourselves, then adding to it with the things that are outside of ourselves. And throughout all of it, approaching ourselves with grace, because all of these things oftentimes are beliefs that we inherited, that we didn't choose, that experiences that chose us or that we experienced. And so it's really about us having grace for ourselves and allowing ourselves to approach life from a place of curiosity and not judgment.
So beautiful. So beautiful. You host beautiful retreats in Africa, something that I look forward to experiencing. Share a little bit about that, because Africa, like, to bring people to where you grew up, where you were born, to your motherland, like, what a beautiful opportunity and experience. What is your vision with these retreats?
And I just got emotional. Oh my goodness. It has been a dream of mine for so long to bring people to my motherland, because so many people in the Western world only have one narrative, one story that they hear about Africa. And it's often the famine and the dictators and war and economic unrest. And yet it is such an incredible, and this is the other thing, Africa is a whole continent. They're made up of 55 countries. You want to be politically correct, but 54 official countries. So every single one of them is so different. And my passion has been to bring people, because so many times I have conversations with people who are like, I'd love to go to Africa, but I don't know where to start, or I'd love to go to Africa and I don't feel safe, or those kinds of things. And so for me, my vision is to be able to bring small groups of women, and I'm being very intentional about keeping them very small, bringing small groups of women to my motherland so that you can experience the beauty, the there is beauty of this continent, and also for you to experience the incredible people of this continent. And so, yes, I'm hosting a retreat in 2027, May 2027. So if you're interested in that, you can go to worthysignatureexperience.com and you can get on the wait list for that to be informed once I open up registration. But that will be to South Africa, because Cape Town is one of the most beautiful cities in on the African continent. It'll be safari, because what would a trip to Africa be without seeing the wildlife and the savannah? And it'll be to my home country, Zimbabwe, so you can experience the power, the majesty, the beauty that is Victoria Falls.
Oh, goosebumps all over my body. Like, if this has been on your vision board, like, who better to go with? So, exquisite. Thank you so much. I have a couple rapid fires and then we'll finish. So let's do this. What's a belief about business you think is complete bullshit? I don't even think you swear. I don't think I've ever heard you swear. I'm such a potty mouth.
Oh my goodness. There's so many beliefs about business that I think are complete bullshit. But I think that success requires self-sacrifice is the one that I would say.
Yes.
That you don't have to, for you to be successful, it does not require you to burn yourself.
So good. What's something that worked at 1 million, but did not work at 10 million?
Trying to do it all myself, trying to take everything on. So get help. Like, for you to get to your next level, to get help. And to what you were saying earlier on, Anna, about finding the things that you enjoy doing and letting those be your zone of genius, and then getting other people to do the things that aren't your zone of genius, but always having oversight is what I would say. So it took me too long to bring on the help that I needed.
So good. If I dropped you into a brand new industry tomorrow, what's the first move you'd make in 30 days?
I'm going to understand who's my ideal customer avatar and where's the money at. Who has money to pay? What's the problem I'm solving? And who is that person? And what is it that I'm saying to them? How do I help them solve that problem? That would be the very first thing that I would do to get to revenue quickly, and then build the product that solves one problem.
Yeah. Focus. So good. That seems to be the thread in a lot of these podcast conversations is focus, focus, focus. Who is someone you'd love to have brunch with?
Oh my goodness. Just because she's very topical right now is Emma Grede.
Ooh, yes.
I'd love to meet Emma Grede.
Yes. Yeah. I'd love to have her.
Because she's very polarizing. It seems people love her or hate her. And I think, I'd love to. Emma Grede would be very interesting.
So good. I'd love to just put this out into the universe. I'd love to have her and Joanna Nix on the podcast. Just saying. Right?
Joanne, actually, you know what? When you even as you say that, I think, let me switch. I would actually want to have brunch with Joanna before Emma Grede.
Gotcha.
Joanna.
Or maybe just all of us together at the table. I like
just
that.
all of us. We just hang.
Let's do that. Oh my goodness. Do you play pickleball?
I've played once or twice, but I would love to pick it up. I really would love to play pickleball. So it's something that this summer I'm going to be intentional and play.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you go to the Pink Skirt Project in Kelowna, then we're going to play together in Kelowna. Just putting that out there. All right. And finally, what's your definition of prosperity?
Peace.
Beautiful. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me. I hang out sometimes, mostly on Instagram, Sandra.Chuma. And of course, my website is iamworthy.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn, but the Instagram, Sandra.Chuma, and iamworthy.com.
The fact that website was available is just fucking insane. Okay, my friend, I love you so much. Everyone go find Sandra Chuma and let's head to Africa together. Thank you, my love.
Thank you. And thank you for the gift of this platform and for your time.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Prosperity Playground podcast. If this conversation sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts so you never miss your weekly activation. If you enjoyed the conversation, please rate and review. Your feedback helps us reach more souls just like you who are ready to calibrate to their most prosperous life. Know someone who needs this frequency boost? Share the episode to Instagram and tag me at _Anna Lozano so we can grow our energetically aligned community together. And please remember, true prosperity is about alignment, freedom, expansion, and embodying your worth. Start today. I'm Anna Lozano, and this is the Prosperity Playground. See you on the next activation.